By the way guys, this video was sponsored by Squarespace. If you're ignoring kettlebells, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. Kettlebells offer something that no other training tool can offer, at least not in quite the same way. I think everybody can benefit from kettlebells, and for a lot of people, they simply make the very most sense if you're going to choose a primary training modality. There's no doubt that over the last decade, kettlebells have gained a lot of popularity. They've gained far more widespread acceptance. But even with that being true, there's still a lot of people who kind of look down upon them, especially within the bodybuilding and powerlifting communities. Even people who purport to love kettlebells will often do so apologetically. They'll say things like, resistance is resistance, it doesn't really matter, and I just love the way kettlebells feel, so that's why I train with them. When no, actually kettlebells offer something that you really can't get anywhere else. I've talked on this channel a lot about specific exercises you can do with kettlebells and why they're so great, but in this video, I want to talk about why kettlebells themselves are game-changing for so many people. Let's put some respect on kettlebell's name. So let's start by addressing the main criticism that a lot of people have when it comes to kettlebell training, and that is that they don't get all that heavy. A bodybuilder or a powerlifter used to bench pressing 150 kilograms is going to sneer at a 20 kilogram kettlebell. And whilst you can get heavier kettlebells, they become increasingly unwieldy once you get past like 35 kilograms, and they're also hard to come by. So with that in mind, if you're already someone who's very strong, what possible benefit can you get from training with kettlebells? Well, the answer is that the aim isn't just to build strength and size. Kettlebells exist in this kind of in-between land between cardiovascular training and strength training. They build strength endurance. They let you use your strength for prolonged periods of time, and that's something you just can't get from an awful lot of other training. It's like what happens if you take jump rope and you take lifting weights and smash them together, you get kettlebell training. And this is huge for so many people because it's time efficient. I don't think it makes any sense to build a maximum strength for anyone and to completely ignore your cardio. You can be as strong as you like, but if you gas out after 2 minutes, if you get out of breath climbing the stairs, you're not fit, you're not going to be useful in a fight, moving furniture, playing sports. You need at least some cardio. So either you have the option to lift heavy weights and then go running on a treadmill or walking on a treadmill, which takes ages, meet somewhere in the middle and get both those things at once. For the weightlifter, the powerlifter, the bodybuilder, this makes a lot of sense as an alternative form of cardio because it supports what they're doing. It's a form of cardio that also trains muscles. It's protective of muscle, so you won't lose as much muscle if you overdo it. At the same time, you can increase the calorie burn by increasing the weight rather than just training for longer and longer. And if you're not someone who's already into building muscle, then it's a great starting point that's going to give you the benefits of cardio training and of weightlifting both at the same time. And strength endurance is what most people need for most things. Our perception of what's normal, of what's desirable, has been somewhat warped by social media and the internet. We see people with these amazing physiques, massive bulging muscles, ripped abs, and we think that's what we should be trying to get, when actually they are very much in the minority. They've probably sacrificed an awful lot to get there, and they probably don't look like that most of the time. Just building some muscle and burning some fat, especially to start with, is going to help most people to look better to begin with. Be able to perform sports, carry furniture, do whatever you want to do because you can exert strength for a long period of time, and you're going to look great because you will have improved your body composition, you'll have built muscle, and you'll have gained more definition because you'll also have burned some fat at the same time. Instead of just building muscle and being massive but carrying a lot of fat so you can't see it, or just doing cardio and losing lots of weight but looking scrawny. By doing kettlebell training, you're doing both at the same time, building great looking muscle that's also defined and chiseled. And this is what Gregory Stark from Labour Stark talks about. He says it's the tide that lifts all boats, or the expression is something like that. Basically, he's saying that when you train kettlebells, you might not be the best thing at any one thing, but it's fantastic for lots of things all at once. And that makes them really something quite special when it comes to training, especially if you're short on time. And all of this with a piece of equipment that will fit in your living room that you can do in front of the television. But that's not all, because they also build functional biomechanics. And look, I know that functional is something of a dirty word these days, but that's because people overcomplicate it. I'm not saying that some movements are functional and some are not. I'm not saying bodybuilding or powerlifting or calisthenics or anything else are not functional. Those things are all functional. The problem is what's missing from your training that makes you less functional. If you have a big glaring deficit in your training, that's going to reveal itself when you try and use your strength outside of the gym. All I really mean by functional in a non-athletic context is learning to move in a way that's actually useful and applicable. Much of what we do in the gym is, but there are some glaring gaps. like our lack of rotation in the gym, lack of side-to-side movement, or the fact that many people still can't get their arms over their head, hinge their hips properly, etc. Kettlebell training teaches and trains a bunch of really useful movement patterns that you simply can't get from dumbbells or barbells, and they do so in a way that translates to reduced pain, improved mobility, and amazing expression of power. When you learn to do kettlebell swings, for example, you're learning to properly hinge the hips, reducing injury risk when lifting weights. But you're also learning to clench the glutes, combating inactive glutes while also improving running and jumping. The deadlift also teaches the hip hinge, but not in the same explosive way that we use for athletic movements. And with those higher rep ranges, you'll be able to grease that groove and ingrain those correct movement patterns and maintain proper form even as fatigue starts to set in, which is where accidents usually happen. To do a kettlebell clean, you learn to hinge the hips, whilst also keeping the kettlebell close to your centre of gravity, slipping the hand through the handle, inserting it into that window. It's explosive, but it's also smooth and graceful. If you choose to jerk the weight from here, you'll be learning to transfer power from the legs into the arm. This is a triple extension, a pattern that we use when jumping, and it's also a useful skill for throwing and lifting in itself. And if you get these movements even slightly wrong, the kettlebell will teach you. You'll feel it in the calluses on your skin, or you'll bang your forearms up, or you'll just gas out immediately. And this is how over time, kettlebell training refines your movement, fixes imbalances, and helps you move with greater efficiency and less pain. I know this because I'm working on my clean and jerk right now. I've been doing the cross-body clean and press for years, but I'm only just now experimenting with the jerk. It's a lot of fun, but I clearly have some refining to do. You might have noticed that these movements are very similar to Olympic lifting, and as you may know, Olympic lifting is a form of training that involves huge amounts of plyometric explosive power, the most out of pretty much anything in fact, and it translates directly to increased performance. But Olympic training also has a very high barrier to entry. It requires a huge amount of strength and skill and mobility, and you need a lot of space and a lot of weight. Kettlebell training allows you to practice very similar movements with the same qualities, but on a smaller scale, perfecting the technique and generating similar power in a safer and more convenient form. The kettlebell halo, conversely, opens up the shoulders and trains rotation and throwing patterns. This is hugely important, as highlighted by Mark Wildman. Throwing is a fundamental skill for humans, one that allowed us to overtake many other species, as he often says, and yet it's something that we rarely use anymore, let alone symmetrically. Very often you can throw on one side but not on the other. Movements like the halo can address this. The halo is the first step on this journey. Mace bells and club bells are far better suited to this kind of training, and again that's something that I'm currently working on, but the point is that this is yet another area you can train with kettlebells that often gets overlooked. Just like rotation, which is something that not even calisthenics really touches. Whether you're doing cross-body kettlebell swings, halos, atlas swings or windmills, kettlebells allow you to train in all planes of motion, far more so than dumbbells or barbells. And these movements are so endlessly nuanced, with so much to learn. Will you train the hard-style kettlebell swing and alternate between relaxation and sudden, powerful tension? Or will you train sport style and look for the most efficient movements to achieve higher and higher rep ranges? Maybe you'll use some combination of both. Or maybe you'll learn kettlebell juggling. It's this nuance that causes many people to liken kettlebell training to a martial art. You're learning the same kind of body control, exploring different styles and concepts. It's awesome. Now you might be thinking that this is a downside of kettlebells as well, that they're technical and challenging with a high risk of injury. But that's not really true. Yeah, the kettlebell swing is a technical movement with a risk of injury, but no more so than a deadlift. And just like those movements, kettlebell training isn't dangerous if you start out with a light weight to begin with. I don't think anyone got injured doing swings with a 5-kilogram bell. And simpler movements like goblet squats and kettlebell deadlifts do exist. The crazy thing is that there's so much more you can do with a kettlebell as well. You can treat it like an oddly shaped dumbbell and do kettlebell curls, shoulder press, bent over rows. Some of these movements have slightly different benefits, or even feel more comfortable with a kettlebell, like the explosive alternating kettlebell rows that help you to train more stability in the core and spine while also hitting the lats. They're also ideally suited to being used for carries, which are brilliant for building bigger traps, a stronger core, an invincible grip, insane mental determination, and excellent endurance. Or flip them on their head, hold them bottom up, and they become a very difficult stability challenge just to keep steady. Then there's the Turkish get-up and its variations, which is practically its own entire thing and endlessly refinable. There's kettlebell juggling too, which is a fantastic form of training that challenges reflexes, coordination, timing, endurance, strength, and more, while allowing you to express yourself in a creative way. They're also excellent for weighted stretching, and there are a bunch of weighted stretches that work best with kettlebells. I love a deep Cossack squat, or even a regular squat for improving my ankle mobility. And the halo itself is a dynamic stretch that has done wonders for my shoulders. Check out clips of me doing the kettlebell halo just a few months ago versus now, and the difference is visible. You can see how much lower I'm able to get it, and how much smoother. There's so much to explore with kettlebell training, and you can get all this from just 1 or 2 small weights that fit in the corner of the room. So people who just write off kettlebells because they're not heavy enough, because they're not optimal for building muscle, are entirely missing the point. Fitness isn't just about building optimal muscle. I'm not trying to claim that kettlebells are superior to other forms of training. I'm not saying you should only use kettlebells. You know, my whole shtick is combining different training styles. I'm just telling you that they are uniquely powerful tools. They offer things that no other tool can, and they can absolutely transform your body, improving healthy movement, turning you into a lean, ripped, powerful machine that never gets tired in the process. Respect the kettlebell. And if you're looking for a training routine that includes multiple forms of training, that lets you combine kettlebell training with calisthenics, with weightlifting, with mobility, other forms of cardio, but is also adaptable to any kind of equipment or any space, any level, then check out my ebook and training program, Super Functional Training 2.0. It exists to ensure that you build not just strength, but strength, mobility, endurance, and all those things together. It's on discount right now for the winter, so check it out in the link down below. But either way, thank you so much for watching this one, guys, and bye for now. By the way, guys, this video was sponsored by Squarespace. So as you guys know, I highly recommend anyone to create their own website. Building a website is how I started the Pioneer, and it's what eventually allowed me to do my dream job. So yeah, I think everyone should do it. And I love having Squarespace as a sponsor because it's a tool that allows anyone to build a website with no coding experience and in a matter of minutes. To get started, you can just pick a template that you like the looks of and then customize it as far as you want to, or you can use the AI tools to build something even quicker and even more bespoke. From there, you can then add a wealth of features, pretty much anything you can think of, whether it's appointment scheduling so you can book appointments with clients, social media integration, search engine optimization tools so that you can make sure your site shows up at the top of Google. There's e-commerce tools that allow you to accept a huge range of different payment types. In other words, there's no limit on what you can build with this, which is why it's used by everyone from small creators to some of the biggest brands on the web. If you want to find out more, then go to squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/pioneer, and you'll get 10% off a domain or website. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Thanks to you guys, and bye for now.